This episode of XAW sends unexpected shockwaves through the asylum. Unforgivable betrayal, messy outcomes, and a brutal return all encapsulated the events of the evening. The insanity of it all reached a tipping point of no return. 20 years ago, XAW was a proving ground where mayhem reigned, pain was given, and only the truly unhinged survived. It wasn't just a wrestling promotion, it was a battleground for the deranged. At the center of it all was Mrs. Armstrong, Darren Bradley, and myself, Dr. Sean Matthews. Each wrestler was an asylum inmate scouted by Commissioner Darren Bradley, but as a doctor of psychiatry, I had the power to allow one's participation or send them back to the asylum they came from. As the head proprietor, though, Mrs. Armstrong had the final say on anything that happened in the promotion, since Darren and myself were also active participants due to our prior backgrounds as wrestlers. She would often settle our disagreements. When everything is said and done, though, none of it could happen without my say-so, and I made sure everyone knew that. This is my story of Xtreme Asylum wrestling. How it began, how it fell, and how it should have been. Welcome to the asylum. You'd have to be insane to do this. The general came to the ring to discuss his dealings with Mrs. Armstrong, saying that they were making great headway in his plans to drive the direction of the company. He also noted that with Penance being kicked out of the cartel when he could not defeat Israel on his own, they had been looking for a third man. The general hinted that they had found one to join their ranks, but would not reveal who just yet. Soon thereafter, Nails and Red Dragon made their way to the ring with their own things to talk about. The general felt disrespected by Gina for her sitting down in the corner. He demanded that she remain standing in his presence. Gina reluctantly complied, but the general said that he didn't like her attitude and expected better from her. The general mistook compliance for weakness, but Gina stood when he told her to, not out of fear, but because in that moment it simply wasn't worth correcting hhim. Having started the show off by making a declaration of intent now that he was officially the XAW Interleague champion, he decided that with his new championship title, he would also adopt a new name. He would no longer be known as Havoc, but would instead prefer to be called King Charles West, as he believed he should be considered the king of the mat. One inmate immediately took issue with such a declaration, especially considering the confrontation they had at the end of the last event. Chris Carnage. Chris Carnage did whatever it took to secure the victory, neither of their titles were on the line, so King Charles was indeed still the XAW Interleague champion. As Azel was looking for a fight, his manager, Pandora, suggested that he issue an open challenge to anyone willing to take it. One of the newcomers who recently earned their spot on the full-time roster, Wildcat, was quick to accept the opportunity. Knowing just how tough Azazel is, Wildcat may have bitten off a bit more than he could chew. Wildcat put up a decent fight, but Azazel clearly showed his dominance, much to the delight of Pandora.
More business. You've had a bit of a losing streak lately, haven't you? Do I pay you to lose? Do I pay you to lay down on this mat, on your back? What do I pay you for? For when? 1, 2, 3. You're right, I can. Because I didn't go to school in Lawrence, Mississippi. Now, back to what I was saying. You got a chance to prove yourself there. I trained you, I put you in this ring, and right now, I'm ready to just send you back to my family. You're right, you're a loser. Losers should all be together. Why don't you find a seat out there with all the other losers? Do you want to sit out there with them? Luckily, there's more teeth in your mouth than there is in the entire audience out there. But if you're wait, it might not stay that way. So here's your challenge. King Charles. After tonight, he had better not wear that thing ever again. Do you understand? As soon as that. 1, 2, 3. I don't know how many more chances you have. Fail me again, and you'll be lucky to be mine.
With my recently formed disdain for the newly named King Charles West, I forced him into a second matchup, this time against the Orderly. Considering that King Charles was already weakened by Chris Carnage, there's no reason for the Orderly to not be able to finish him off.
Looks like Dr. Sean Matthews gave work. Yeah. He wrestles smart. That's why he's the North American champion. Very I tell you, new generation is big time. Went for a splash and nobody.
Even with King Charles West weakened and defeated by Chris Carnage in the prior match, the orderly was not able to gain his own victory over him. This was the final straw for me. My patience with him was gone altogether, so after some final blows of my own, I grabbed the microphone and told the orderly that he was no longer welcome to participate in orderly conduct or XAW as a whole, and therefore would be forced to return to his home asylum permanently. I knew that I would have to make an example of someone soon enough, but I had hoped it would not be one of my own. So be it, though. I have no need for anyone who cannot carry out the plans that I have set forth. The general returned to the ring, finally ready to introduce the newest member of the cartel. The answer was a bit of a shock even to me. Then again, I guess I really should have seen it coming.
Bye-bye. First, let me reintroduce you to the premier members of the cartel.
Nails and Red Dragon walked arrogantly to the ring, knowing they had one hell of a surprise up their sleeve. If there's one thing I'd say this group had in common, it was most definitely an overabundance of arrogance.
Okay, so here are the premier members. And tonight we decided to bring out our second member. You peasants will recognize him as, well, probably the best wrestler in XAW. Well, he said what? Anyway, this man is now going to become the richest wrestler in the cartel. He's made himself a very wealthy man by joining up with us. And that man, you all recognize as the XAW champion, Phil the Drill.
Phil the Drill betrayed me, abandoning orderly conduct for the cartel. He did not credit his success as XAW champion to me in the slightest, believing that he would have been victorious with or without me. The general talked him up, making the Drill feel better about himself than he deserved. I can say that there is one thing the general is legitimately better than me at: Brown nosing his way to the top. As for me, though, I prefer that everyone knows their place.
Well, you know, people here, I noticed. So it feels pretty good to be the richest, best wrestler, the handsomest wrestler in all of XAW. Yeah, that's me. That's me. And now that I'm joining the cartel, it's only going to get better and better and better and better and better. And we're all going to get richer. And you're all going to be poor. Well, I'm going to put it better myself. Welcome to the Open Organization. And you're glad to have the best wrestler out there. What do you think, boys? I think we take one in now. That's it. Game over.
Growing tired of the cartel's arrogance, Commissioner Daredevil sought to straighten them out a bit by issuing an open challenge for any 2 members of the XAW roster in the back who would be willing to take on the premier members of the cartel. Seth Steele and Wildcat would accept the challenge. Then, to stack the deck against the cartel, Daredevil would also enlist the help of one of Nail's old rivals from a past organization, Kevin Gambino, as the special guest referee.
Leg drop by Red Drag. I didn't know they had wrestling in South Japan. I thought they were called Set scores are national teams. These are fixes for wrestling for a while. Vicious goes on by every fixer. Okay, don't sit down. Yeah. Flipped him on over.
Mr. Wallace can definitely get into it this opponent and take his point.
Definitely. Red Dragon is a deadly opponent. Very tactical, very tricky. A lot of martial arts experience with Red Dragon. Wildcat's going to have to get a fresh man in there.
I absolutely agree, Darren, because right now he's a no man's man right now.
Oh yeah. This man's been in a lot of pain. Doesn't fix it now, Red Dragon.
Xtreme Asylum. Yeah, a lot of energy.
Elbow drop by Red Dragon. So still ready to get back in there.
Yeah, right now, Wildcat kicking out.
Down back. And here's the set speed. Got to get behind. Okay. Open picture. Go on. Once you get a split second break, you need to use it for those. Red Dragon is very, very tactful in martial arts. I mean, it does with your hands. Or something. Wildcats gonna throw that for a while. Anytime that's the pitches. Kick out. I don't know how you did that. It's very good. Wildcats get punishment now. That has to be illegal. That has to be illegal. He's scheming. I'm sure there's a good deal out there in a minute. Wildcats get a lot of punishment in this match. Ooh, he gets the shot. Here comes Castile. Castile on the comeback. Premium shot. Here comes Red Dragon. Just sit there watching. They just laid it out. Uh-oh. Looks like this is going to be over. Red Dragon just got hit. This move, I've seen it many times. I'm just watching it. Ready to kick off. 1, 2, 3. It's over.
In the end, Gambino did his best to call the action down the middle, being as fair and square as he could. This resulted in a victory for the cartel, but Gambino was not happy. He attacked Nails and enlisted the help of 2 more old allies, Southern Thunder and Jake the Scorpion Williams.
strings of wrestling. Just yank on it.
Sent the invitation. And it just so happens, we may be 3 old, retired, have been, but we're soon to be in the ring again. How about the 3 of us? See the 3 of you, what is it, Cortez? Martel? How about we see you next show? In the ring, clearly now.
Riot formally requested to officially fill the void that has been left by Phil the Drill and the Orderly, so I decided that if he could defeat the Silver Streak, I would grant him that opportunity. Unfortunately, the camera failed to capture most of the match. Clearly, I made the decision to help Riot secure his victory against the Silver Streak, but as far as I'm concerned, that just means that Riot now owes me a debt of gratitude, and therefore must follow my leadership to the highest standard possible. It's time for me to make sure that my followers' first priority from this point forward is absolute unquestioned and undying loyalty to me and my cause. Neither failure nor disobedience will be tolerated any longer. Orderly conduct is dead. Long live the pathological doctrine. The commissioner set his sights on me next, but unlike the general, I can handle my own disputes.
You're always bringing in these people that are always cheating, just like you. Constantly. Everybody's getting sick of your wrestlers. Everybody's getting sick of you. And you know what? I'm getting sick of you. Is anybody else sick of this little midget here? Maybe you're gonna let Matt right now. he really can.
Oh yeah, I think Dr. Sean Hanson, he should go back and forth the right. Dr. Sean Matthews.
Now there, he just reached down and started. Come on! Big double blows on the looks like John Matthews is going to be the one getting up first. Somebody gets a beer down there. No, my dog is here. Hey, I ain't complaining. Go ahead, choke. I think that he's knocked out. Oh yeah, he's out. This man.
Rob Anarchy had previously been injured during a backstage incident weeks before and believed that I was responsible for the attack, but I didn't actually have anything to do with it. I managed to slip away while he pled his case with the commissioner. Rob soon followed right behind me, but I had Azrael waiting for him behind the door. At the time, though, I didn't actually know who was responsible. After Azrael came to my aid, I exclaimed to Rob Anarchy that he should be more careful about who he accuses of backstage assaults in the future. While I don't blame him for the extreme reaction, his anger was most assuredly pointed in the wrong direction. The shockwaves caused by recent events led two members of XAW to become increasingly focused on establishing their superiority towards one another, with many pulling double duty to accomplish their goals. Stay tuned for more action from the asylum coming soon.